Hello guys and welcome to Gone 2 series. In the earlier tutorial we saw how to customize a Beans instance using a BeanPostProcessor by implementing a BeanPostProcessor interface. Now in this tutorial we will learn one more concept called a BeanFactoryPostProcessor. A BeanFactoryPostProcessor allows you to modify or change the bean definitions provided in the Spring's configuration XML file before Spring container instantiates any bean. So you provide all bean definitions or beans configurations in a Spring's configuration XML file. Now in future you may wish to make a change or modify any of these bean definitions or any sort of configurations which you have defined in the Spring's configuration XML file. So question is how to do it. One obvious and straightaway solution is to make a change in the Spring's configuration XML file itself and you are done. And the second way is, instead of modifying the XML file, you provide all configuration changes in a Java class using a BeanFactoryPostProcessor class, and at runtime Spring framework just override or apply all these changes on top of the Spring's configuration XML file before instantiating any bean. Let's go through a simple demo to see how a BeanFactoryPostProcessor works and in what situations you should use it, and of course how is it different from a BeanPostProcessor. This is the basic demo I've used in almost all of my previous tutorials. Here I have a restaurant class which is having a welcome note property, having a setter method and a greet customer function which just prints the value of welcome note property. A Spring's configuration file which is having the definition of restaurant bean. Here I am setting the value of welcome note property, hi and welcome to our restaurant. So this value is coming from restaurant bean definition. And this is the test class I have written to test this Spring demo. Here I am requesting Spring to get me a restaurant bean instance, and here I am calling its greet customer function. Okay, so if I run this application, what output I will get? I will simply get the value of welcome note property which I have set in the Spring's configuration file in the restaurant bean definition. So here I've set the value of welcome note property. Now for some project requirement, what I want is I would want to change the value of welcome note property. So one obvious way to do this is I would make a change for the value of welcome note property here in the XML file itself. And the other way is I will write a separate class implementing a BeanFactoryPostProcessor interface, and there I would change the value of welcome note property for the restaurant bean. To do so, let's create a separate class implementing BeanFactoryPostProcessor interface. Go to the package, new class, give the name to this class. I have given here demo BeanFactoryPostProcessor as its name. So this class is going to implement BeanFactoryPostProcessor interface. So let's do that. BeanFactoryPostProcessor interface. It's giving error because we would need to implement the method which is present in this interface. So let's do that. So post process BeanFactory method we have implemented from BeanFactoryPostProcessor interface. So what we'll do now is we'll modify the value of welcome note property which is there in the restaurant bean definition in this Spring's configuration file in this newly created class demo BeanFactoryPostProcessor, which is implementing BeanFactoryPostProcessor interface. Now how to do that? Just to save some time, I've already written this code, so let's go through it. So using just these three statements, I have modified the value of welcome note property which is there in the restaurant bean definition. Let's understand what we have written here. So here, using configurable listable BeanFactory's instance, that is this instance, I can modify any of the definitions of beans or any sort of configurations which I have provided in this Spring's configuration file. So what I've done here is I've got the bean definition for restaurant bean, And with this bean definition, I've got all its property values. And with property values, using add property value method, I'm just modifying the value of welcome note property with this value. So I've here overridden the value of welcome note property with this newly written string. Using add property value function, you can modify any existing properties for any bean definitions, or you can add a new one. So here, with the help of BeanFactoryPostProcessor concept, you can always modify, change or extend any of the things that you have written in Spring's configuration XML file. So now what we need to do is, we need to go to the Spring's configuration file and put an entry of this newly created class here like this. So here we are telling Spring Framework that we have written a class demo BeanFactoryPostProcessor, which is implementing BeanFactoryPostProcessor. So now our demo is ready. So what we'll do now is we'll go to the test class and run this application. Right. So here we can see the output. This is the modified welcome note value using BeanFactoryPostProcessor. So here, using a BeanFactoryPostProcessor concept, we modified the property value for the restaurant bean definition using demo BeanFactoryPostProcessor class. So the way we have modified a property value for the restaurant bean definition, we can modify any configuration metadata or any sort of configurations which we have in this XML file programmatically using a BeanFactoryPostProcessor interface. If you observe here, I have written just one BeanFactoryPostProcessor class here in this application. What you can do is you can have more than one BeanFactoryPostProcessor classes in your projects, and you can control their order of execution by implementing an ordered interface in your BeanFactoryPostProcessor classes, same way we saw in the previous tutorial for BeanPostProcessor interface. So here you have written a custom BeanFactoryPostProcessor yourself by implementing BeanFactoryPostProcessor interface. Now Spring people have provided you with some ready-made BeanFactoryPostProcessors. For example, property override configurer and property placeholder configurer. In the next tutorial, we will talk about property placeholder configurer BeanFactoryPostProcessor. Guys, thanks for liking our tutorials and providing feedback to us through emails and comments. Believe me, your comments and feedback is really valuable to us. Do like this video if you really like it, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to get all updates on latest video tutorials and programming stuff.